Okay, ladies, we were having some discussion in class the other day, so I have created a little sample and then we'll do a demonstration. We talked about the difference between the SSK done cleanly or as originally written and the D. Barrington variation. That's where I learned it originated. So I have a little bit of that, the normal, usual SSK down here, and then I did a little bit of the variation. If you look really closely up underneath the decrease, when I slip as to knit, and knit the two together, notice that the legs are normal. They lay like they're supposed to, or like they usually do. And see, there's another one. I did that one as a normal SSK. Now, look at that one right there. Do you see how those legs twist? Those ones right there. Now, there are those that believe that that causes it to tuck up underneath the other stitch more smoothly. And when I look at it, to be honest, there is a little bit of a zigzag, and then it goes fairly straight. The problem is, if we look at that little stitch, it's twisted. See, that one right there is twisted. So there are times, uses where this would not be good. An example would be in a saddle. If you're working across the stitches in SSK and you slip the second one as to purl, it will twist it, and that's going to leave a little like gapy hole where the join is. So now let's do them just for a minute so we can try them out. The normal SSK is originally written. It says to work to where you want the decrease. I'm doing it one stitch in, so I'm going to knit one. It says slip as to knit, slip as to knit, left hand needle back in the front of the stitches and knit the two together. That's a normal SSK. If we were going to throw knit, still slip as to knit, slip as to knit, left hand needle back in the front, wrap the yarn around and pull it back through. That's a normal or usual SSK. Let's back this one out for a minute. When we back them out, you'll notice that their little stitches are twisted, because when you slip as to knit, it allows it to lay without twisting the legs on the stitch. The variation, D. Barrington variation, there's a lovely story to that, says slip as to knit. Now you could slip as to purl, but it's almost, why would I do that? Rather than just slip as to purl, what if I stick the right hand needle in the back and the left hand needle in the front and knit the two together? So let's do that again, but let's continental it this time. So slip as to knit, right hand needle into the back, left into the front, and knit them together. That's a much smoother move, I think a smoother decrease, even though that second stitch is twisted up a little bit. So then the story goes, could you do a central chain decrease or a center double decrease, same thing, like a modified SSK? Modified SSK being slip as to knit, right hand needle into the back of the next stitch, left hand needle into the slip stitch and knit them together. That's a modified SSK. Could you do a central chain decrease that way, thinking in those terms? So that would say slip two stitches together as to knit two together. Normally the instructions say knit the next one and then pass the two slip stitches over. You have to be real careful of that. So what if you did it like a modified SSK? I'm going to take this out. I don't have enough stitches to just eat them all up. What if we did it like that modified SSK? What if we slip two together as to knit two together, right needle into the back of the next stitch, left needle into the front of the slip stitches, and then we knit them together at the same time? Let's do that throw knitting. Get my stitches out. Let's throw the yarn. So we're going to slip two together, We're going to right hand needle into the back, left hand needle into the front, and knit them together. What that decrease does is it allows the center stitch to stand on top of the right hand and the left hand stitch, a centered decrease. Now let's talk about that for just another second. In our instructions, it tells us very carefully to mark the stitch, and then we're supposed to knit to one stitch before the marked stitch. So most of the time people want to put the marker on the needle, thinking it'll travel up with us, but in this particular decrease, one stitch before the marked stitch, we can't slip two together now because the marker's in the way, so then we would have to fiddle with that. So instead, oops, my little marker has caught a hold of my stitch. Instead, what if we mark the stitch? What if, there's my, I'm pretending that's my marked stitch. What if I come in here with a pin and I catch up both legs of the marked stitch? Now I can knit to one stitch before the marked stitch, slip two together as to knit two together. I can then knit one and pass the two slip stitches over, or I can do the modified version where I go into the back of the next one with the right needle and the left needle into the front of the slip stitches and knit them together. And now look, my marker remains in the top of the centered stitch. I don't have to worry about that marker on the needle. So this would be the best, I think the best idea. Be sure and move the markers up. Now I'm not going to move it up right this minute because I can still feel it if I come past it. But when it gets down, a couple, 3 decreases, I'm going to push it right back up underneath the needle. So central chain or centered double decrease is to slip two together as if to knit two together. You can knit one and then pass the two slip stitches over. You can also slip two together, right needle into the back of the next stitch, left needle into the front of the slipped stitches, and knit them together. I find this one much more time and motion effective. It gets much quicker as I do it. There is a lovely story about Meg Swanson and learning that decrease. At some point, ask me, and we'll have, I'll tell you the story. It's a good one. All right, girls, there's our normal SSK, our modified SSK, our centered double decrease, and a modified double decrease. Enjoy.